If you want to double your commissions, be an asshole. You know how women say they always want a nice guy, but end up going back to the toxic ex, and the nice guy ends up getting friend zoned. It's the same thing in sales. I made $228,000 in commissions in my first full year as a high ticket closer, became one of the top producers at one of the largest sales training companies. Now my job every day is reviewing sales calls and role plays from different closers. And whenever I see a sales call from a rep where it ended up in a no sale and the prospect topped off the phone, it's almost always because the closer was being too nice. And it goes like this. The closer and the prospect will be talking on a sales call. The prospect stays surface layer. The closer is too afraid to go deeper into the pain. The surface layer problem sounds like, oh, I just want to make more money. Yeah, it would be cool to get some funding. Yeah, it'll be cool to get some leads. It sounds like this. And the prospect's language is quite vague and surface layer and quite broad. They may say something like, oh, I think I want to do this. Oh, yeah, it would be nice to get more leads. Yeah, it would be nice to make more money. Yeah, I think I want to make a change. Quite very broad and lack of commitment, lacking urgency. And there's also another example too. If the prospect says, yeah, I've been wanting to start my business for 1 year, and they mention that they've been looking into maybe getting some help starting a business in the last couple of weeks, the closer completely ignores it, or they acknowledge that that could be a problem because if they've been wanting to start a business for 1 year, but they've only been researching for the last 2 weeks, what about the other 11 and a half months? The closer ignores it. And at the end, what happens? The prospect goes, yeah, this sounds good, but let me just think about it and let me get back to you. Yeah, this sounds really good, but I'm going to look at other companies and I'll let you know. Yeah, this sounds really good, but I don't know if this will work. All the objections in the world. Then what does it do? Well, number one, you feel just confused and frustrated because, oh, I thought you wanted to start a business. I thought you wanted to do this and make a change. And then you hop off the call, not knowing what to say. You're like, man, what should I have said at that point? And you just feel a bit frustrated and just bang your head against the wall. And this keeps happening over and over again. Maybe you're even losing confidence on the call. Maybe even you're getting call reluctance where, man, I don't even know if I want to get on the call because I don't know what to do on the call. I'm just losing my confidence. I've been there and we hear this all the time for people that are coming to us initially. So why is this happening in the first place? So like I said, the reason why conversation stays surface layer on the sales calls is because there's a lack of gap. Now, you may have heard this concept quite often, but let me just break into more practical terms, okay? So like I said, if you're selling a biz app as an example, helping 9 to 5 people start a business and help them make more money and have them more time. And if you're only getting as deep as the person saying, yeah, I want to make more money so I can travel. If that's the only depth you've gone into, is that really enough for this person to hand over $5,000, $10,000, knowing that on average, an American has $1,000 to their name? So they're going to have a deeper reason to actually hand over the money, right? And so another thing too, if you're not challenging the prospects and holding them to a higher standard, then what's the whole point? Because at the end of the day, they're going to keep repeating the same behavior that they came into the Zoom call for. So people keep making decisions and actions based on their current and past behaviors, right? And so if they came into the call procrastinating the whole time, if you haven't challenged that, if you haven't reframed that, and when I say reframe, I mean helping them see things from a different perspective and helping them actually commit to the version of themselves where they will make a change, where they won't procrastinate anymore, why should they have any reason to actually move forward on the sales call? So this is what kills deals all the time. And people may think, I just need to get better at objection handling. And yes, you might need to get better at objection handling for sure. It helps. But have you ever sit down and wondered, why am I keep getting the same objections over and over and over again in the first place? Because you could try to objection handle, but if the prospect doesn't see you as an authority figure because you haven't challenged them, you haven't helped them go deeper into their problem, why should they even follow your lead? So as a side note, there's a lot of reasons why some people have some trouble asking deeper questions, going deeper into the pain with the prospect. As an example, they may feel salesy, a bit weird asking the consequence question. Like, hey, what happens if you don't do this and XYZ problem continues? Well, a lot of times this happens is because if you've been staying surface layer the whole time in the discovery in the past 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and if you've let them get away with vague answers, then yeah, of course it's going to feel weird. Same thing in objection handling. Yeah, you could try to pull out some cool objection handling reframes that you saw in an Instagram video or YouTube video, and then you could try to do some reframe and try to challenge the prospect then. But I mean, you've been a pussy for the last 25 minutes, and now you're trying to show up as some leader. The prospect's going to go like, how dare you? Like, who are you? Some prospects may even get offended Some prospects may even just hang up the phone because it's not congruent. They may feel like they're just talking to two completely, totally different people. You know what I mean? So this is why it may not be landing for you that well. So let's go over practical terms on how to go about this. Now, we're going to break it over different reasons why this happens and different solutions on how to actually go about this. Okay. So, first one, we're going to go over some tangible things and so less so tangible things. First one is the inner game side of things. Some people like to call it mindset. I don't really like that term because it sounds too woo woo, but it's basically our mental headspace. Okay. Inner game, usually a term widely known in the dating space. Okay. And a lot of times people talk about confidence and different mindset issues and things like that. A lot of times the lack of confidence comes from what? Lack of competence. Because do you have mindset issues tying your shoes? You probably don't, right? But why is that? Well, because you're competent at it. You know exactly how to tie your shoes. So why should you have lack of confidence or mindset issues trying to tie your shoes? You knew exactly how to do it. Same thing too. If you knew exactly how to get the right answers from the prospect at every question, every stage along the sales call, and you knew exactly how to build more urgency, pre-handle different objections, would you really be feeling that nervous and quote unquote salesy? Probably not, right? That being said, though, we're gonna go over some things that helped me in my journey as well. Now, in my last company, I started out selling B2C, standard 5 to 10K packages. And then eventually at one point, I started selling more the B2B deals, right? The 30K deals with the CEOs of multiple eight-figure companies, maybe chief sales officers, COOs of these different companies. And yeah, I felt a bit nervous. It's like, oh, can I even ask these questions? What if they think it's salesy? And at the time, my former boss, Jeremy Miner, told me, well, he asked me these questions. He said, well, Brian, who has the problem? I said, well, them. Who has the solution? I said, well, us. So if they have the problem and if we have the solution, why should we feel nervous? And I've heard different things and different variations of people telling me that, hey, don't feel nervous. It's fine. It's another human being. Yeah, that's a part of it too. But when he put it like that, that really started to completely shift things for me. Because when I realized, oh, doesn't matter how much money these people have, whether it be someone that's living paycheck to paycheck or someone that's running a company that's doing 7-figure, 8 figures a year, 9 figures a year, they have problems too, right? Whether when I was making nothing per year, 4 figures per year, 5 figures per year, 6 figures per year, or 7 figures per year, I still have problems. And human beings have problems. And if they sat down, it's not like, if you're watching this right now, most of us aren't cold calling or cold door knocking. A lot of times, people booked a sales call with you. It's an inbound call. They decided, nobody put a gun to their head saying like, hey, you need to show up to this call. No, they decide to show up to that call. Or if you're calling outbound leads, which you should be, if they opted into something and then your setter called them or whatever it may be, even if they said, well, your setter called me, that's why I'm here. Yeah, but they didn't have to even book the call, agree to booking the call, or show up to the call, setting aside an hour of their time. Especially the more quote unquote successful or the more busy they are, their time's more valuable, right? So it doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter if they say, oh, I just want to check it out. I just want to get more information. Oh, I don't really have a problem. I just want to see what you guys do. That's just a surface layer stuff, right? And so that could be because of different reasons. Maybe the way you're conducting the sales call, maybe the way you're bridging from question to question, maybe your tonality, maybe your conviction. We're going to talk about those things later that caused that response to happen in the first place. But just know, inner game side of things too, just a fundamental level, just know that they have a problem or a need. That's what they're on the call. These people aren't dumb. These people aren't just bored, just nothing else to do. They decided, agreed, in a free country, in a free world, to show up to an hour-long call, carving a time on their busy schedule. They have a reason, they have a driver behind it. Just understand that. Another thing too, going back to what we were talking about earlier, these are just regular human beings. I'm a human being. You're a human being. They're also a human being. And so what that means is that there's no reason to put people on a pedestal, right? So just like how in a dating context too, if you say, oh my God, that girl's so hot. I've had so many friends where they meet a girl, maybe on a dating app or in person at a club, whatever it may be, and they tell me, oh, Brian, dude, this girl's so hot. Oh my God, I'm going on a date with her. And I almost know with 90% certainty that they're not going to have a great date. Not because I'm some dating expert, I'm not, but I know that at a human psychological level, because they're putting the other person on a pedestal. Because if they're saying like, oh my gosh, she's so hot, what are we doing here? We are, I mean, perceiving ourselves as lower status and perceiving the other person as higher status. So if we say like, oh, this person's more advanced, this person's more sophisticated, what are we doing there? Well, we're just putting that person on another pedestal when in reality, we're all human beings. It's not like some persons are fucking aliens and some people are not. You know what I mean? And also realize that, I mean, are we realistically, what are the chances of us meeting this person in real life? Probably never, right? So after the call, you're going to go back to your regular life and they're going to go back to their regular life. Now, that doesn't mean not try hard in a sales call and objection handle or follow up if needed. Absolutely go do those things, but just realize that, yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, there are worse things in the fucking world, right? This is what has helped me as well because I've been there where I used to be so frustrated after sales call. I'm like, man, why can't I do this? Now, it's good to use this frustration to drive yourself and have urgency, get the right training, really work hard and actually get better. Right. But if you're getting to a point where if you're beating yourself up too hard to the point where you're just getting too discouraged, and if you're beating yourself up too hard for that, then just realize there are worse problems in the fucking world. At the moment that I'm talking right now, at the moment that you're hearing me talk right now, there are people dying in war zones. There are children, they're 12 years old, getting their arms and legs blown off. It wasn't their fucking fault. It wasn't their fucking fault. What did they do wrong? Nothing. So just realize that if you're watching this right now, you probably have a roof over your head. You and I both do, right? Just realize that if that helps you feel better about yourself and actually take the pressure off, so to say. The second point is your sub-communication. What is a sub-communication? Again, this is a term widely known in the dating world because I come from that world. Before I even got into sales, I actually learned sales in the dating community. Because what happened was when I was 19 years old and I was trying to get better at talking to people because I saw my friends all getting girlfriends and I just wanted to get a girlfriend. That's all I wanted to do. And somehow I ran into these pickup and prank videos online. And I thought it was the craziest thing in the world. I was like, you can go up and talk to people? That's crazy. And so what I started doing was that I started going out and started talking to random people on the streets, okay? Whether it be girls or even random old men just standing on the street. I'd go out to clubs. I'd go to music festivals. I would start cold approaching people in the coffee shop, right? I would do this everywhere. And during the process, what I realized was I was learning how to sell before I even got into sales because it's pretty much quite similar because it's a human interaction, right? So you talk to them. If you have lack of confidence in the way you talk and your facial expression, body language, your tonality, then the other person is not really going to pay that much attention, even if you say the same exact words. You might have heard the saying a lot of times where it's not about what we say, it's about how we say it. Well, I would argue that it's both, but how we say it has a huge, huge impact. A lot of times, even more so than the words itself. So I'll give a practical example right now. So, yeah, as an example, if I kind of talk like this, I think you might kind of listen. But if I talk like this, then you're more likely to actually pay attention. You see the difference there? But what was the difference? Because you might not be able to catch it. Well, number one is because, number one, I held firm eye contact. It blows my mind. You may not even catch this, by the way. When you hop on a sales call, you may be avoiding eye contact here and there. You may not even realize. And then maybe because you may not be that confident in your ability to actually sell, then that's another issue. That's a skill set issue as well. And another issue may be, I don't know, you might be afraid that what the other person will think of you, so on and so forth. Going back to the inner game section, we're all going to fucking die. That's another thing I realized too, is that when I was 21, my best friend from high school, I saw him die when he was 20. You know, not in real time, but he died. He passed away when he was 20 years old. I was at his funeral. And so I saw him in his casket, cold body. And so that gave me a huge learning lesson that, I mean, we all hear that, right? We all hear that, hey, we can all die tomorrow. But I saw it firsthand. And that was about 8 years ago. And even since then, my life has never been the same. That was a very pivotal, life-defining moment for me almost, is that, wow, I saw it firsthand that we're all going to fucking die anyway. So just realize, don't be afraid of what other people think of you or judge you. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't care about what other people, like their feelings and stuff like that, especially in a sales call. Like there are times to be empathetic, but not being sympathetic and not letting that affect us in our ability to actually communicate effectively, show up as a fucking leader, right? Because here's a fundamental truth is that people want to be led. Human beings, they just want to be led. but they don't want to be led by anybody. They want to be led by somebody that speaks with conviction, that carries themselves in a certain way, that seems like they have a fucking plan, and that seems like they feel like this person, me following this person's lead, have a higher chances of me surviving, as crazy as it sounds. This goes back to evolutionary psychology. Okay. So imagine caveman times and we're trying to go hunt or trying to go from point A to point B. Okay. And if the tribe leader was like, I think, guys, we should go that way. You're gonna be like, dude, are we gonna fucking die from a saber-toothed mammoth? Are we gonna die from a lion? But if the tribe leader said, all right, yep, we're going that way, then you're more likely to actually follow their lead, right? Same thing here. What was the difference? Well, it's the way we spoke, right? So what do we want to do? Speak from your guts. A lot of people speak from the throat. Now, there are times to do that when you're doing an upward inflection, as an example, when you're coming off more curious. But for the most part, a lot of times people don't talk loud enough. That doesn't mean that we should be fucking screaming at people and just that's not what it's all about. But just make sure you have a full voice, talking from your guts, hold firm eye contact from an eye contact facial expression level. Okay. Look like you have actually certainty, conviction. And I mean, this is more fundamental level, but make sure your background and the way your first expression doesn't disqualify yourself. Okay. So as an example, if you look too young, or if you look like you live in your mom's basement, then they're not going to be taking your advice or your words or your questions that much seriously either. Right. So if you have a bed in your background, remove that bed. That doesn't mean you have to live in some mansion crazy background, but make sure your background doesn't disqualify yourself, right? So maybe like a nice bookshelf, that's fine. Don't have those fake backgrounds like the space or the Golden Gate Bridge. You just look like, what are you hiding? Are you like a scammer? You know what I mean? So don't do that. Okay. And I've taken some acting classes and vocal mentoring classes from different public speakers as well. And from there, what I realized is it's good to practice these things as well. And when it comes to sub communication, what helps is to over exaggerate. What do I mean by that? So let's say as an example, if you know whether you're looking at your own sales call recordings or you have someone else point out the blind spots, because a lot of times we don't know what we don't know, which is why it helps to actually have somebody who's been there, done that, who knows how to fix that problem to actually give you a different point of view to point out those blind spots, right? Otherwise, you're going to keep repeating the same mistakes and keep losing out on deals and commissions, which is no bueno. But let's say you identify that, okay, cool, I need to speak with more certainty, or I need to come off more personable, whatever it may be. And at that point, you're like, okay, so how do I get better at this? Well, let's say your certainty level is a 3 out of 10, and you need to be at a 10 out of 10. Then you don't want to get to 10 out of 10, because when you try to get this 10 out of 10, you're probably going to land at a 6, which is better than before, but it's just a very incremental change, right? Because what's going to happen is that you're going to keep going back to your default state, because why? It's the path of least resistance. It's your default setting. So we're always going to resort back to the most easiest path. That's how human beings are, because that way we can actually survive, so we can preserve energy, right? Now, what we want to do is, instead of trying to go to 10 out of 10, we're going to try to get to fucking 20 out of 10 or 50 out of 10 or 100 out of 10. Now, this is going to sound very dramatic, but I did that for a reason, so you get the point. Because when you try to get to 20 out of 10, other people's eyes, the way they perceive you, and other people's perspective and the prospect, you didn't really do a 20 out of 10. In their eyes, you probably did like an 8 out of 10. That's oftentimes what happens. Whenever we're training our students in real sales system, our implementation program, this is what we do. I have them, okay, 20x certainty. No, not good enough. 10, no, that was maybe 5 out of 10. Now 100x that. So that they're like, okay, now from your eyes, a lot of times students say, oh man, am I doing too much? It feels a bit weird, almost like a bit fake. It's supposed to feel that. Because if you go to the gym for the first time, let's say you have a workout, your muscles feel sore, right? It feels a bit different. Does that mean that it's fake? No, it's just that your body's not accustomed to it yet, right? Because I mean, it makes sense. We haven't done that yet, right? So it's not that it's fake. It's just that our body's not accustomed to it. It's just that we got to show up in a certain way. Okay. So we got to make sure we do that. Body language, we want to make sure we do that as well. Don't just be like this. Okay. That shows lack of confidence. So we don't have to be like this, all arrogant, but just making sure you're sitting just in a confident manner. And this is what I learned while I was cold approaching girls in real life, by the way. Girls are just random strangers, just to learn my social skill, because, at the time, what I had social anxiety, right? I don't like to label things, but, I felt quite anxious being in social interactions, talking to strangers, or just any social interaction with anybody for that matter. And during the process, like, okay, let me just work on talking louder. And when I was going out to nightclubs, I had to talk louder, right? I had to force myself. Otherwise, they don't even know you're there. right? So you have to catch people's attention. That doesn't mean that you have to go out to nightclubs and do that every day. Not really. But what I'll suggest is on your sales calls, start doing that. Start speaking a little bit louder, okay? More certainty, over exaggerate, okay? And when you're going about your day to day too, there's also what I'd recommend. Let's say you're going out to the gym from point A to point B. So as you go about your day, start complimenting people and say it with a smile, say it with conviction, say it with some swagger. Okay. Try that. And when you're at the gym, when you're asking that person, hey, are you done with that equipment? Smile a little bit, half swagger, half commission. Same thing as you go about your day. So it's not like you have to just carve out an hour each day of your life. You could. I've done that. But you don't have to do that. But as you go about your day from point A to point B, I'd recommend this because what does it give you? It gives you more reference experiences. Okay, what is the reference experiences? It means that you're not just practicing, although that helped, but you're interacting with real human beings. You're interacting with real human beings. So you start to get more feedback outside of your sales calls too. Which, by the way, which is what I would recommend doing outbound as well whenever you get a no-show as a closer, which speeds up. You're speeding up your learning curve because when I say outbound, whenever you get a no-show, instead of just sitting there just watching YouTube or getting a massage or jacking off, you can actually go into the CRM and start calling leads, right? Which not only you're not doing random role plays with random people, you're role playing with real life prospects, but those leads, no one would have called them anyway, right? So you're actually getting reference experiences and having more at bats. When you stack those things, the inbound calls, the outbound calls, and your real life scenarios, it's just going to cut the learning curve by a lot. You can just run laps from other people. You can get a lot further ahead than other people, even if they started earlier than you, even if they're more talented than you, even if they have more experience than you. That's what I did. Okay, next thing is the verbals, which is pretty much the logical thing that you might have been waiting for, which is okay, if they're giving a vague answer, if they are giving an excuse or some sort of limitations, then how do you go about that? Now, we don't have time to go over all of those in this video because we've done that in other videos and that's what we go over as well. But we'll go to a few examples, okay? So as an example, let's say you are selling some sort of, I don't know, lead gen or business coaching as an example. And the prospect says, yeah, I just want to get more leads. Now, that may be good. However, we still need to uncover the problem, right? Because if we don't help them realize that they have a problem, how that's affecting them, then it's just like a cool thing, right? Oh, I just want to get more leads. It's very surface area, right? Which is no bueno. We don't actually go deeper. And so at that point, you say something like, okay, cool. I mean, why not get more leads with the word of mouth and referrals you're doing? So the formula, the framework is why not get outcome you just mentioned with insert whatever they're doing now. Okay. So if they mention that they're doing word of mouth and referrals to get clients or customers, then you can simply go, oh, I mean, why not get more customers with the word of mouth and referrals? Then what's the answer they're more likely going to give you? They're going to say, well, I can't. And in which you'd go what? You'd say, why not? You'd probe into that, right? We're getting deeper now. Well, because it's not consistent. What do you mean not consistent? Aha, we're getting deeper. Well, sometimes you get more, sometimes you get not that much. Oh, how long has that been going on? Now we attach a time frame, more urgency. At that point, you can go, your business kind of being up and down. What's that doing to the business, right? Or if they said the lead flow has been up and down. Oh, if the lead flow being up and down, what's that doing to the business? After that, oh yeah, our business has been stagnating, our revenue's been up and down. Yeah, besides the obvious, besides that, how else is it affecting business? You can say that. Okay. If you're selling to a small to medium-sized business owners, you can also say, what's that? Brother, we talk to business owners all the time, but what's it doing to you as a business owner? Now, when you ask these questions, you get quite a bit of pushbacks from prospects, like, hey, why are you asking me this? A lot of times it's because you're not asking with conviction that much, you're not asking with certainty, and you're not having the right sub communication. Right? As in, if you notice, you know how I lower my voice a little bit and I slow down a little bit and I pause in certain places? That was all meticulous. That was all done by purpose. That way we help this person open up. That was all set up in the right sequence. You see? So if you're getting that, then it's a more symptomatic issue that we're going to take a look at. But for now, just realize that if you're getting those, why are you asking me this? Just tell me the price, how much this costs. You may still get those, especially with more colder traffic. But if you're getting that on a consistent basis, a lot of times it's because you're not speaking with enough certainty and conviction, or you're not bridging from question to question that well, and you're not coming off that conversational, meaning that you're probably asking, okay, question, question. It just seemed quite robotic, and you're not really bridging the pieces that well. We're not gonna go over in this video because I gotta go out to dinner soon, but just understand that. So if they also say, well, I just saw your guys' ad. I just want to check it out. Let's say you went into, okay, so, what's that doing to the business? Or, is there anything to change about the results you're getting if you could? And they may say, oh, I just saw your ad and I just want to check it out. Now, they didn't really answer the question, right? And the more you let them do this, by the way, the more you let them get away with vague answers, they didn't answer the question, right? We'd ask them, let's say we asked them, is there anything to change about the results if you could? And they say, oh, I just saw your ad. I just want to check it out. They didn't answer the question. And so the more we let them do this, we are literally training the prospects to keep repeating that behavior. Okay. So what we allow them to do, what we tolerate is basically a standard on the sales call with anything in general, right? But especially on the sales call. So you're literally letting them get away. They're going to keep repeating that behavior. And if they're not following your lead, if they're not seeing you as an authority figure, you could pull out all the objection fancy reframes at the end that you saw on a Instagram or a YouTube video. But what's going to happen? They're going to be like, oh, cool. Yeah, I just got to think about it, though. That's just how I make decisions, which is no bueno. So we do not let them get away with that. So what do you say? You would say, oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, watching the ad aside, though, you're here, right? So what would you change about the results you're getting if you could? So what you do is, yeah, you acknowledge that, you deflect that, and you go back to the question by slightly rewording the question. Okay. Now, if you also say, let's say you get a partner objection, right? And the person says, yeah, I just got to talk to my partner, yada, yada, yada. Right. And then at that point, maybe a reframe you can do is like, yeah, I mean, is it really fair for your partner that you put that burden on her when in reality, it is your responsibility? Okay. Out of context, but let's just say we ask that question, knowing that it is your responsibility. And if the prospect goes, yeah, you're right, they didn't really answer the question. Then at that point, you go, well, brother, I didn't ask you if I'm right or wrong. I asked you if that's really fair for your partner. So you see how now that's a very direct way of asking it. If you've done the discovery in a very weak, very midway, okay, then you're doing that in the objection handling, the prospects can close down or they may get offended. The reason why I would say something like that is because the way I sell is very, very direct. Okay. Now, in the beginning, I'm not just telling that they're a piece of shit. By the way, going back to the title too, when I say be an asshole, I don't mean just cuss them out or just be completely disrespectful to people. I said that to make a point because a lot of times, a lot of closers that are not getting the results they want is because they're too nice. That's why I'm saying this. Okay. That way you actually have more certainty in yourself and become a more leader for yourself. You know how we talked about over exaggerating? Same thing here. So that's what you do. And also not the same thing too. If you've asked them, hey, so before we started talking, were you out there looking for ways to get out of this shop and make 10K a month, or what have you been doing? And if they said, oh, I just been doing research for the last couple of weeks. Okay. And if they said they've been stressed out being paycheck to paycheck for 9 months, that's great that they've been doing research for the last couple of weeks. But what about the other 8.5 months? This is what a lot of closers miss as well. They're like, oh, they've only been doing research for a couple of weeks. So let me just move on to the next question in the script. No. If you just follow the next question in the script, become a script robot, that's why it kills deals. That's why you keep losing out on commissions. Now, this may not be your fault because maybe when you got into the industry, people just told you, I just got to follow the script. Or maybe some people told you that you just got to completely wing it, just be yourself, and you have no idea what's going on in the call. We got to know what we are doing with each section of the sales conversation and each question. It's not about the questions. It's about the answers we uncover. Questions are simply a means to end to uncover the right answers for the prospects. And the answers are not for us. It's for the prospects to realize for themselves. You know what I mean? So if they hear themselves verbalize the vague answer they're giving themselves, oh, it would be nice to do this. I think I need to do this. I'm just in research mode. Then they're literally keep feeding that into their brain, right? So we got to correct that. So what would you say at that point? If they say, yeah, I've been doing research for the last couple of weeks, when in reality, they've been paycheck to paycheck for the last 8 years, 8 months, whatever. Something you can say is, oh, brother, can I offer perspective on that? They're like, sure. So you had mentioned that you've been stressed out about money for the last 8 months, right? They're like, yeah. So, I mean, it's great that you've been doing quote unquote research for the last couple of weeks, but what about the 7.5 months prior to that? They're like, oh, I was just busy with work. Then you can go for 7.5 months. They're like, oh, at that point you can go, well, you meet Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, we'll have 24 hours in a day, right? So why is that some people actually get it done despite the circumstances and some people don't? They're like, well, I don't know. Well, it's because some people actually make the time. So could it be possible that you're not making the time, taking more ownership has caused you to be in the position you're in now? Where you've been paycheck to paycheck, just stressed out, stuck at your job for the last 8 years. They're like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you put it that way, you're right. Right. So what do you feel like that has maybe costed you, but not taking more ownership? Like, oh, I guess I lost out of money. Money for what? me being able to provide more for my family, yada, yada, yada. Right. So ultimately, brother, why do you feel like you need to change within yourself? That way you don't need to keep being paycheck to paycheck for another 8 years. They're like, well, yeah, I guess I need to make some time. You guess? They're like, well, I need to. Well, we both know you need to, brother, but how committed are you to actually get outside of your comfort zone and take more ownership? That way you don't have to keep being stuck at a job away from your family. But yeah, I'm very committed. Why though? And they say they convince themselves. So that's very nitty gritty example. That's one thing you can do. Now, again, not cookie cutter, but it's something you can do. If you break down what we did, I mean, there's a lot of things what we did, but just one thing what we did was that we didn't let that person buy into their own limitations. Okay. Because the story they have themselves is that, well, I've only been doing research and I just haven't found what I'm looking for. Or I just didn't have the time. That is the story to tell themselves, right? It's very interesting when I was in college and I was going through a breakup and a female friend of mine, we're going to Buffalo Wild Wings, amazing chicken establishment, by the way. But she was telling me that, Brian, because at the time people were spreading rumors that I cheated on her and stuff like that, which I was not. And I was a bit bummed about that, especially because it was people that I consider my own friends spreading those rumors. And then that friend that we're going to Buffalo Wild Wings together in the car, she said, Brian, there's always three sides of the story. Your side of the story, their side of the story, and what actually happened. And when I heard that, that was about 6, 7 years ago. That saying has still stuck on my head. It was one of those pretty much the only non self help guru quote that I still remember from somebody. And when I hear that, I'm like, huh, it's true. And when we take it from a sales context, the prospect has their side of the story, which is their side of the story is like, yeah, I was busy, yada, yada, yada. But we all know if something's really important for somebody, they'll go make the time, right? They'll make it happen. Just like how if something's really important to somebody, they'll go find the money to get the program. Let me tell you this. When I was selling on different offers, a lot of times the other closers on the team would just give up on those broke leads. When they would hop on a call, the prospect says, I don't have much money. They'll either end the call or disqualify before even getting onto the sales call. Or by the end of the call, if they say they don't have the money, they say, okay, cool. When you have the money, reach out. Just let them go right away. I wouldn't really do that though. I wouldn't let them buy into their own limitations. I would say, okay, cool. Well, there's a difference between being resources, having resources. I mean, you can still go find the money. I mean, listen, I've had people that only had $500 in their bank account or not enough money, but I'll do a good job at actually helping them realize that they got to make a change and holding them accountable and holding them to a higher standard that these people would go borrow the money from people, whether they're friends, their family, their relatives. I've had some people that start a GoFundMe account, like a donation page online. I've had some people do Instacart, Uber Eats, DoorDash every day, texting me every day. Brian, I'm almost there. I almost got the money. I'd have those people. Not everybody, but plenty of people do that. So they may not bought it right away, but the next day they get the money. Next week they get money. Next month, maybe 6 months later, a year later. And this may sound a bit disheartening for you because, oh, I want to make the sale now. Of course, if you can close a deal right then and there, of course do that. But why even give up on your pipeline? Imagine if you did that with every single lead that you talk to. Imagine if these people just snowballed over and over again. They may not be right away, but it's like it's delayed gratification, right? Then these commissions compound. And if I hadn't done that, then I would have lost out on half of my commissions because I've done my data, which amounted to about 114K a year in commissions. That's somebody's salary, right? So the point I'm trying to convey to you is do not let them buy into their own limitations. Because if you let them buy into their own limitations, you are letting that person know better than when they first walked into the Zoom room. They walked into the Zoom room with these excuses and the limitations and these behaviors that are not serving them. And then you let them walk away from the Zoom room, hop off the Zoom room with the same behaviors. That is not us doing our job. That is not our job. Our only job, yes, to make the sale, of course. Make the sale, whatever. Bring the company money, make yourself money. Yes. But the real goal should be, number one, following your process to the best of your ability in that moment, but also leaving that person a better person than when they first walked into the Zoom room. Meaning that you have actually held them to a higher standard. You have challenged them on their behaviors. They're not serving them. So at least they walk away a better person than before. We at least need to be doing that. Persistence. So I have a saying, you'll close more deals and help more people being pushy, aggressive, and needy than being timid, passive, and unpersistent. Now, a lot of people are too afraid of being pushy and needy, and people say you shouldn't be a pushy salesman, yada, yada, yada. But the truth is, the pushy salesmen, the pushy closers make more commissions and they make more money and actually help more people than the timid closers, people that are too passive and really not persistent at all. So this is the fucked up paradox is I think we've gone too far the other way when people say, oh, be neutral and don't be pushy. Yes, be neutral and don't be pushy. However, some people take the neutral thing too far. People become too timid and too unconfident. People become too passive. When they hop on the call, they're just, oh, yo, I'm not sure. And their lack of conviction says that. They speak so loud. I heard Eli Wild say this. I think he got it from somebody else, maybe from himself, but he said, who you are speaks so loud that I cannot hear the words you're saying. Who you are speaks so loud that I cannot hear the words you're saying. And I like that saying a lot because before even you open your mouth, the way you speak and the way you carry yourself really speaks volume. And that's what we're trying to do here, right? But going back to the persistence thing, I mean, some people are too afraid of being needy. Like, oh, should I call that lead back? I'm afraid of following up and all the kind of things. Dude, somebody else followed up with that person and they closed that deal. They took your sale. They took your commissions. They took your spot in the leaderboard. They took your spot in the recognition that you're getting in the industry from the business owner, the track record, and the name you could be making yourself in that industry. Congratulations. Somebody who's maybe less skilled than you, maybe somebody who's less qualified, maybe somebody who has less experience, maybe somebody who has lower IQ than you. And that's really what I've done. Now, I don't know if I have lower IQ than the people that I beat, but I mean, I saw in my last company, literally an all-star team, the Avengers of sales, the all-star closers at one of the largest sales training companies in the world. And I've outsold pretty much everybody that had way more years of sales experience than I did. And a lot of times it came down to this is that number one, yeah, the conviction and the inner game, so on and so forth, but also the persistence too. Is that I didn't really care if I look needy or not. I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep calling this person. There's one B2B deal that I closed, and I tell the story from time to time, and it was a 30K deal. So I got on a call with that. I think he was the COO of the company. I got on a call with them. And then I had some other calls with different decision makers. And what happened was, okay, verbal agreement. All they had to do was sign a contract, pay the invoice, and ready to go. 30K. Great. And at one point, they started ghosting me, and then they stopped replying to my calls and my emails. And so what did I do? Well, obviously, I followed up, call them again, send a funny text, send a value-based follow-up, so on and so forth. And then they still didn't reply. Now, a lot of people would just give up after maybe 3 follow-ups, if they even do that, or 5 follow-ups, right? And because they're princess closers, they're princesses. That's what they are. But I'm not a princess closer. So what I did was, well, I just kept calling them. So what I did was I called them from a different number. I called them at different times. I sent them a funny text. I sent them a funny meme. I sent them a funny GIF. I sent them a helpful resource of value. Okay. I'd also call different people at their company. I would find out different stakeholders, aka decision makers of their contact numbers, right? I'll do that. And I'd keep doing that. Guess how many times I did that? So I did that 20, I counted the CRM. I think it was about 27 different contact points, 27 different calls, text, emails. They would either not reply at all or very dismissive. Hey, I was busy. Those things. But I kept doing that. And on the 28th time, they picked up. And then they finally paid the invoice and signed the contracts. And I closed a 30K deal. And that's just one example. I kept doing that with all my leads too. Now I couldn't do that with every single lead, but as many as possible that I could get my hands on. Now, obviously, you want to prioritize the leads that are more engaging back and forth, but I wasn't going to give up on those people either. And so that's how before I left the company, I generated the most B2B revenue. I was either number 1 or number 2 in the company. And I had no B2B sales experience before that. There are people who had B2B sales experience, but I had the least one. But because I'm like, let me just get after those. Right. So there's another saying too, right? I think it's from a movie or a song. I can't remember. There's a saying which is, it ain't easy being sleazy. Okay. Now there's different ways you can interpret that saying, but how I see that is, well, a lot of people are not willing to be sleazy. Now, a lot of people are not willing to look silly or stupid, failing or looking needy, so on and so forth. That's great. The bar, the standard of the industry, well, in anything has become so low that it has made it so much easier for people like you and me to actually win and get ahead of those people, which is a fantastic thing. And by the way, for most people watching this video, they still won't do that, most people. But if you're one of the few people that are willing to do this, then yes, you can beat most people because I've done it. And I've helped our students do that too. That are no different than you. So watching a basic YouTube video is great, but if you actually want to shortcut that, if you want our help in implementing that and tailoring that for your specific situation, the inner game, the sub communication, the persistent, the verbal game, then go to the first link in the description box below, and you'll be able to see if you'll be eligible for our implementation program, Real Sales System, to get the 10K a month, 20K a month in commissions as a high ticket closer. Now, it doesn't work for everybody. I'm not just saying that as a sales tactic, but we generally don't help everybody. There's some qualification metrics that we go through. So you can go through that. And if you're eligible, then you'll be able to find a time for either myself or someone on our team, and we can see if we can help you out. And as always, no more princess closers.